Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty expansion has brought a plethora of new content to this game. From areas like Dogtown and Morro Rock to a slew of new quest lines incorporating themes that extend beyond the reach of Night City and into the broader NUSA, there's a lot that this supplemental DLC has to offer. Throughout the storyline, V will meet with characters such as President Rosalind Myers, Secret Agent Solomon Reed, and of course Song So-mi, otherwise known as Songbird, the netrunner whose initial communication with V sets the new storyline into motion. From the moment she first appears in V's head, Songbird and her subsequent disappearance are motivating factors, driving our characters to take on the likes of Kurt Hansen and to uncover the mysteries at play in Night City and beyond. Ultimately though, the time comes for V to make a decision about just where their loyalties lie, whether that be with Songbird or the personable and upstanding Solomon Reed, who, at this point, has stood by us for most of the playthrough, making him the obvious choice for many. By choosing to ally themselves with Reed, V is offered an opportunity to access an entirely new ending to the game, and a true, honest cure to their relic problem in the process, despite a few notable drawbacks therein. It's a pretty compelling deal, but it's not the only option. Siding with So-mi probably won't be the first choice of many, as it brings with it no special cutscene and no cure, since So-mi will reveal near the end of the journey that she had been planning to double-cross V early on. This conclusion is melancholic for sure, and that's partly because of all of the strange phenomena surrounding it, phenomena which, upon closer inspection and a lot of thought, has led me to a surprising interpretation. Having played through this ending twice now, I've come to believe that So-mi may be in way over her head, and that her plan to save herself from the horrors of the Blackwall isn't as straightforward as we, or she, would like to believe. That's why, this Halloween night, I present to you a theory that I've been pondering for some time. The first theory, in fact, that I felt passionate enough about to devote an entire video to, and which I hope gives you something interesting to think about on this spookiest day of the year. This is an exploration of why Song So-mi may have been used by a mysterious third party, and why a familiar face might have everything to do with it. To understand the potential trouble that Songbird may have found herself in, it's first important to understand a couple of other aspects of the Phantom Liberty story, namely the nature of the condition she's suffering from, and how exactly she intends to remedy it. To recap a little bit so that we're all on the same page, Song So-mi has been running the net under the NUSA for quite some time. She was recruited around the age of 19 by the Federal Intelligence Agency after being caught trying to breach the Blackwall, and was employed shortly thereafter, where she'd continue many of these same endeavors above board. Initially, this arrangement would have been one from which So-mi could stand to gain an awful lot in terms of protection and security. An artificially intelligent firewall that sits between the usable portions of the net and the remnants of the old net, which has been overtaken by rogue AI and malicious software, the Blackwall is an incredibly dangerous place to explore in cyberspace, so the benefits associated with running under an authority of some kind would have been very welcome. The inevitable issue, though, is that working the Blackwall for prolonged periods of time is bound to have some consequences. Viruses and malware will make their way into a runner's system eventually, and So-mi was no different. But herein lay some of the downsides of working with the NUSA.
For Myers, the NUSA, just another weapon in their arsenal. A tool for reaching beyond the Blackwall. And weapons and tools, they don't get to make decisions or choose to retire.
See, despite her condition, So-mi wasn't really allowed to stop her work, and by the point of Phantom Liberty, her plight had become significant enough that she'd resorted to a desperate plan to escape, but also to repair the damage done to her body and mind in one fell swoop. The thing is, it's in the way she planned to go about this where the details become a little bit more important. Although So-mi's capture by Kurt Hansen was not a part of the initial scheme, her main goal remained unshaken, that being to get a hold of a particular artifact recovered by Hansen's men sometime prior, a neural matrix that came from a dilapidated Militech facility. This was essentially a specialized containment solution for an AI, with its origins from beyond the Blackwall, and using the matrix, a directive could be fed to that AI, and completed without completely freeing it from capture, thus mitigating a lot of the associated risk.
So this neural matrix, how much do we know? Experimental tech nested in a mainframe that someone dragged up from deep beneath Dogtown. From a bunker, to be exact. Part of Project Cynosure, a joint US Militech operation mounted in a bid to counter Arasaka's Soul Killer. The Matrix itself is a functional container. It houses an AI from beyond the Blackwall, and its design lets the user deploy the AI for a specific purpose. In our case, to fix you in Songbird.
With this tech in hand, Songbird was sure she could make a recovery, but to procure it, she'd need to play both sides, to be sure that Rosalind Myers didn't actually end up in Hansen's hands. This is where V would come into the picture, persuaded to assist the President under the promise of curing their ailments as well. When V reaches the big decision point of the campaign, choosing either to betray Reed or So-Mi, this is pretty much the context that they're given to work with, and truthfully, even when choosing to help Songbird, it's possible to reach the end and still consider her actions as fairly open and shut. But there are a few additional pieces of context that may cause some to begin questioning the specifics of So-Mi's plan. During a conversation that transpires sometime after getting back in contact at the Black Diamond party, So-Mi had informed V that after they make their escape, she had made arrangements for an underground facility that could use the neural matrix to cure their respective conditions.
Okay, say I believe you. What's the next step?
We go through with the mission, grab the neural matrix. While Reed and Alex grapple with Hansen, we make our getaway.
And then?
You help me skip town. I already cut a deal with the Black Clinic far, far from Night City. There, the Rippers can access the Matrix and use an algorithm to create a prototype of our cure. They'll need me present to run their tests. The moment they're finished, I'll send word.
As it turns out though, far from Night City was a bit of an understatement, as this clinic was actually located on the moon, and therefore required a rocket from Night City's International and Translunar Spaceport in order to visit. From this point, the rest of the playthrough will be dedicated to sneaking through the spaceport and getting So-Mi aboard that rocket in the first place. But once again, these happenings sort of allude to more questions than answers, perhaps the largest question of which is as follows.
One thing you forgot to tell me. Who got you this flight?
Funny thing is, I don't know. Proxy showed up. A corpo everyman for the ages. Expensive, understated suit, dark hair, blue eyes. He asked me questions. The kind only I know the answers to.
This is a conversation that can only be had if siding with So-Mi during the campaign's pivotal discussion point, and which, even then, is entirely missable if this specific dialogue option isn't chosen. If this is your first time hearing this exchange, and you have significant experience with the Cyberpunk 2077 game, then you probably already have some idea of where this is going. But if not, well then let me explain by taking you through a specific side job from the base game. Dream On is the name of a quest which follows Jefferson and Elizabeth Peralez, a wealthy couple heavily involved in the Night City political scene. They first got to know V during the mission I Fought the Law, where the Merc was tasked with discerning the true nature of the death of former Night City Mayor Lucius Rhine, and sometime after the quest's conclusion, V will be contacted again to help the couple with a strange new problem. Without going into too much detail, it's uncovered throughout the job that the security firm charged with protecting the Peralezes instead had been involved in an intricate plot to spy on, collect information about, and eventually literally reprogram them. It's one of the more unnerving, Matrix-esque missions in the entire game, and there's a definite sense that something much bigger is going on just behind the curtain. After uncovering the information regarding SSI's true intentions though, Elizabeth will reveal that she has been somewhat aware of the goings-on all along, but couldn't speak out because of an anonymous call she received sometime prior, threatening that intervention could cost Jeff his career, or worse still, his life.
I find it strange you took this to security instead of your husband.
I thought I was going insane. I wanted to see what was on the feeds first. There was nothing there, of course, so what was I supposed to tell Jeff? And then, the next day, I got a call.
Who was it?
Them. Whoever they are. There was a garbled voice on the other end. He never introduced himself.
And? You cut some kind of deal with him?
No. I was told that our perfect lives could fall apart at any minute. That I have my husband's safety to think about. After, there was no record of the call. It was as if it had never happened. So I'm begging you, V. Jefferson can't find out about any of this. Ever. His life depends on it.
She then urges V to become a part of the cover-up, in a sense, by pleading with them not to tell Jefferson the full truth when they debrief him, leading to an intense decision about how much, if anything, they're willing to divulge. Before that conversation can be had, though, a couple of important things occur. The first is that V receives a call similar to the one Elizabeth reported a little earlier, which goes like this.
Yeah?
It doesn't matter what you tell him. It doesn't matter what you think of doing or do. You can't change anything.
What?
We know who you are. We know what you are. We know what you want. You are playing with fire. Don't dare cross the line.
Fuck.
It's definitely a creepy interaction, but one that's made all the more bizarre when reaching the spot where we're actually supposed to speak with Jeff. And if looking to the left from where he sits, there's a balcony, atop which is this man, staring back at you, seemingly intent on monitoring the conversation that you're about to have. This is Mr. Blue Eyes, and if you haven't put the pieces together already, then think back to that description that Songbird gave earlier in the video. A corpo everyman with blue eyes was the one who supplied her with that spaceflight. We also know that Mr. Blue Eyes is fully capable of officiating or otherwise securing access to space travel, as evidenced by a secret variation of the Sun ending, where Blue Eyes themselves contracts V to retrieve data of some sort from aboard the Crystal Palace, a high-class orbital casino. This ending in and of itself is definitely worth its fair share of speculation, but I'll leave that for another video. For now, it just serves as a nice parallel to what we're seeing with So-Mi. With all that being said, I think it's safe to say that the person being referred to here is almost certainly Mr. Blue Eyes. And this bit of information, although it may not seem like it at first, has some far-reaching implications that may seriously affect the way that we interpret Songbird's Black Clinic expedition. This is also the point in the video where I feel the need to reiterate that nothing I'll be addressing from here on out is to be taken as 100% accurate, because in order to continue, we have to make an assumption about Mr. Blue Eyes that not everyone is going to agree with. We need to employ another popular theory that explains Blue Eyes' significance within the game. That assumption is that Mr. Blue Eyes is not a real person, but instead an AI from beyond the Blackwall who's connected to or otherwise inhabiting someone else's body as a way to manipulate goings-on in Night City, and to achieve some kind of opaque, nondescript goal. There's more evidence to this than you might think, too. Perhaps the most strong of which is something that Johnny says if and only if you tell Jefferson Peralez the full truth at the end of Dream On.
Somehow I doubt it's people who are behind this.
So aliens?
Very funny. You're too young to remember this, but not so long ago, people talked about rogue AIs prowling cyberspace.
Some have actually taken this theory even further, though, and asserted that the AI in question may actually be a mind-uploaded version of Richard Knight, the founder of Night City, and a good number even think that the body he's controlling belongs to none other than Morgan Blackhand, due to the in-game name of Mr. Blue Eyes' character model. I'm not here to speak on either of these aspects of the general Blue Eyes theory, though, at least not today. Any assertions that Mr. Blue Eyes is a character from Cyberpunk's past tend to be too ramification-heavy for me to want to cover here at this time, since, to be honest, his specific identity doesn't really affect the direction of the particular scenario that I want to get at here. For what I'm about to posit, we need only assume that Mr. Blue Eyes is being controlled by some form of AI from beyond the Blackwall, regardless of the particular AI in question, whether we know them or not. So now it's time for the million-dollar question. What is the theory that I've been alluding to this whole time on this Halloween night? Well, based on everything we've seen, I don't necessarily believe that curing Songbird's ailments is the primary concern of the Black Clinic. I'm instead convinced that So-Mi is being socially engineered to deliver the neural matrix to Blue Eyes or his associates so that they can utilize, experiment with, or assimilate it in secrecy. That may sound like a fairly substantial leap in logic, but now that I've introduced the idea, let's think critically about So-Mi's plan one more time. Her goal all along has been to get a hold of the neural matrix, so that the AI inside can be used to cure her. That's not a bad plan, not at all in fact, and we know from the proper new ending introduced in Phantom Liberty that it's very much a viable option. It also makes sense that as a netrunner, So-Mi may have been familiar with the neural matrix and what it was capable of from the very beginning. But then consider Mr. Blue Eyes. He too must necessarily understand the principles behind the matrix if he was indeed the one to arrange for her visit to the clinic on the moon. Bear in mind that our prominent assumption is that Blue Eyes is himself an old-net-hailing AI, not unlike the one found within the neural matrix. It seems like there could be a conflict of interest there, and one which is only furthered when we ask the question of why Blue Eyes and the Black Clinic would even bother helping So-Mi in the first place. Even if we assume that Mr. Blue Eyes and this clinic have no relation to one another, which to their credit is never specified, but is sort of implied, then what does So-Mi really have to offer him in exchange for access to the spacecraft? Some of you might immediately think that it's a matter of simple payment, that Blue Eyes may have approached Songbird with an offer of assistance in trade for eddies. But consider how well-connected and well-funded we've already established the Blue Eyes organization to be. Would So-Mi really be able to offer a monetary incentive significant enough to warrant the time or effort? I suppose maybe, but if this is just a one-off trade to him, then we would expect his involvement to be pretty much over well before V and Songbird arrived at NCX. The ship would have been secured, and Blue Eyes would have been out of the picture, his side of the deal complete. And yet, that's not what we've seen at all. Astute players have found two separate instances where Blue Eyes can be seen actively observing our progress through the spaceport. The first point is here, looking down from on high as V sneaks through the Tycho terminal, and the second, even more obscure appearance comes as the monorail, which carries our main characters to the launch pad, is pulling away from the station. He carries a black umbrella, the only time in the whole game, from my knowledge, where a non-luminescent umbrella is used, and his sheer presence almost serves as a sort of send-off, visual confirmation that his plan is being followed, and that his asset is exactly where they need to be. With these appearances in mind, I think it's a bit more difficult to subscribe to the idea that Blue Eyes' part in all of this is simply as a middleman, or a means to achieve transport. It's clear that his involvement and investment in So-Mi and/or the neural matrix is deliberate. All signs point to there being a bigger bargain at play than we've been informed of, and I just don't think that So-Mi is aware of it either. We've been shown that she is utterly desperate to escape the NUSA and her afflictions from the Blackwall by any means necessary, to the point where she's even willing to accept aid from people like Kurt Hansen. So is it really that much of a stretch to imagine that Mr. Blue Eyes, a man who appeared before her seeming to bear all the answers, wouldn't also be taken at face value? I just can't discount the feeling that So-Mi is not getting healed in that clinic, at least not primarily. In fact, for all we've been shown, there may not even be a clinic. But there is one saving grace, because So-Mi doesn't leave us hanging for long, or at least that's what we're led to believe. When some time has passed after completing a successful launch, we'll receive a text from an unknown user that kicks off a short quest called From Her to Eternity. It prompts V to revisit the spot where the two had conversed about her past and their respective futures earlier in the story, and here, V will find a small stash containing two things. The first is a metal pin, which can be added to their apartment and identified as a souvenir from the Tycho lunar colony, the place where So-Mi would have touched down on the moon. And the second is a really good piece of cyberware called the Quantum Tuner, which seems like it could have been one of Songbird's former implants. This would sort of make sense, since assuming the procedure actually did go through, So-Mi would have had all of her cyberware removed, as was the case with V in the other ending option that I mentioned previously, though it's still entirely possible that the quantum tuner is unrelated. But doesn't this right here negate everything that I've been saying up until this point? Doesn't it prove that the operation was successful, and that Songbird made it back from the moon in one piece? Well, admittedly, it is a fairly strong piece of evidence against a lot of the stuff I've been talking about thus far, but that evidence is still only circumstantial. Since we're never told the true identity of this message's sender, it leaves the door open to the possibility that it wasn't So-Mi at all. And if we're still assuming that the Blue Eyes organization was involved in whatever business occurred at the Black Clinic, it may have been but a trivial matter to isolate the memory of her and V's previous conversation, using similar technology to what we see used on the Peralezes, and then have a drop arranged so that V could be supplied with just enough closure that they wouldn't look into Songbird's whereabouts any further. I'm not sure that I really believe that order of events myself, but it is still theoretically possible. Perhaps it's more likely that, despite what I've been theorizing all this time, an operation to rid So-Mi of her implants and ailments really did take place. But in the process, she would have become a pawn of the Blue Eyes, just like Jefferson and Elizabeth. Regardless of what the answer may be, I still think it's pretty likely that the neural matrix must have served as the real object of desire to whoever was behind this. But given the resources and a dedicated facility, perhaps the AI inside was extracted, absorbed into the fold, and wasn't necessarily destroyed after that single use. So-Mi may have received treatment, become yet another sleeper agent of the Blue Eyes, and despite the cure still existing, V is never contacted because they can still be leveraged by the group in the future, so long as they're desperate enough to work for it. In a way, I sort of like this new interpretation more than my initial theory, but I'll be the first to admit that some of it still comes across as contrived or a bit out there. And ultimately, whether you believe So-Mi was helped, wasn't helped, or some grayer combination of the two, I want to make it clear that I'm not trying to sell you on any given interpretation. The great part about Phantom Liberty's endings are the thematic and lore-related ramifications that we can draw from them, and that will keep us guessing as to the nature of this game all the way until the inevitable release of the sequel. The fun of theory crafting, at least in my opinion, comes not from searching for a definitive conclusion to a vague subject, but rather seeing the ways in which different people try and fill that vagueness and view it with meaning. If nothing else, I hope that that's your takeaway from this video, and with any luck, maybe it's made you think critically about a storyline in a way that you haven't before, because it's mysteries like these that keep a character fresh and interesting long after any on-screen departure. And with that, we reach the end of another video. As always, thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you found this topic interesting. I hope this theory got you thinking a little bit more about the characters and narrative of Phantom Liberty. This is the first time that I've created a video like this on this channel, one which focuses on what we don't know rather than what we do. And I'm so used to making traditional lore videos at this point that it really was a fun challenge to switch up my thinking a bit and indulge in some speculation on Halloween. It was a really good time, so who knows, if you guys enjoyed it, maybe I'll do some similar videos in the future. Also, let me know in the comments what you think about what I presented today. Did it seem plausible to you? Did I miss the mark? Or was there something that I should have added or taken into consideration that I didn't know about? I probably did miss something. I usually do, so if you know what that something may be, don't be afraid to let me know. It would also be cool just to see if anyone had any similar takeaways, or if anyone wants to posit their own theory about what may have happened to So-Mi. I'd really love to hear, and if you couldn't tell by the fact that I made a whole video about it, I've been thinking about the subject quite a lot, so no matter what, I'm sure it'll give me something to think about. Also, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you've been watching for some time but haven't done so already, maybe consider subscribing if you'd like to see more. We're knocking on the door of 10,000 subs, and whenever we hit that milestone, I'll be uploading a special sort of thank you video of sorts that I've been writing a script for on and off for a little while. It's not going to come out exactly at 10,000 subs, but you can expect something of that nature mixed in with the more typical fare. Anyway, I think that's just about all I have for you this Halloween. Thanks for dropping in. I hope you have a fantastic day or night, whether you're celebrating or not, and I'll catch you guys in a week or so with a new video. For now though, this is Averberon. I'll see you again soon, and have a good one.